I appreciate the invite to be here. So it's something close to my heart to discuss. I'm originally from Louisiana, where my mother was a very typical Cajun background, where we had 8 siblings. They all got adult onset diabetes and died. Oldest person who lived was my mother, who was 71. I'm now 74, so it's different. But no one there, we used to have family reunions and eat all kinds of sugar when I was going to medical school. I didn't know there was a connection. I mean, it's hard to believe that. It was just like back then, we didn't know that smoking could lead to lung cancer. I mean, it wasn't a commonly identified connection that could be with diabetes. There wasn't an identified common connection. The late 50s and 60s, it started to become more and more known, but it really hasn't, to this day, it isn't known enough to make a dent in our way we think as a society. So, like the pamphlet says, we have 280 million people with overt diabetes in the world, and the vast majority of those, over 90%, have adult onset diabetes. Adult onset diabetes is the kind that people get when you can have normal insulin levels, develop older in life in the traditional ways. Although now it's become, because of the dietary lifestyle that we have, younger people, before they're 40, are getting adult onset, or teenagers are getting adult onset diabetes. But adult onset diabetes is better characterized as insulin resistance, not insulin insufficiency. So that's a big dividing point between the two. And the other thing that's a very important dividing point, and the most important thing I can say tonight, is that if you have adult onset diabetes, if you're going to be producing insulin, or you have low insulin, it's curable. It's curable. It's curable, but it's not curable through the pattern of 95% of the time relying on medication and surgery when the medications don't keep the legs or the foot damage in check at all, or blindness. These are all, most of the disease and the suffering that comes from adult onset diabetes can be prevented through diet. And exercise. In the early 70s, when I was back in India, what piqued my attention was that there was a study done in Israel where they took the people, like it was certainly known by then, that there was 10 or 11% adult onset diabetic incidence in any given population living the modern diet that we were living in the developed countries. And the people, the original Jewish population in Israel had an adult onset diabetes incidence of 2%, 1 or 2%, much lower. When the immigrants from Europe came in and brought their diet with them, the entire population, both European and locals, switched to the same diet. And within 20 years, the incidence of diabetes in both groups were the same. And this is a remarkable finding. You think that there has been something revolutionary there that's been brought to the attention of the public health facilities there. But like in the United States, there isn't a galvanizing force when this kind of information it comes out. It isn't like you don't suddenly hear about this being repeated over and over in TV programs or in public health channels that we watch. Most of the doctors don't hear about it. The doctors suddenly find themselves being immersed with medications that might change or might slow down the incidence of diabetes. Like, does anyone know when insulin was first discovered and what city was the doctor? There was a doctor here in San Francisco who had Juvenile diabetes. And he was a young doctor and discovered how to use insulin. But if that's become the pattern where you find a medication to control the condition. But along with those lines, there's been these natural programs of medicine in around the world that says that if you control your diet and you exercise, you simply will improve your diet, you improve your risk of diabetes if you don't have it, and will improve your condition if you're already diagnosed with it. There's a study in England called the capital C, capital A, capital P, capital S, CAP study. And this is probably the most important. If everybody can write this down, capital A, capital CAPS. It's a heart study. It's called a heart study in England. And I have an article about that study in my website. There's one medical doctor who followed these 2,500 people for 35 years. And he found that those people, and he studied their lifestyle, and those people who exercised, if you eliminated all the other variables, those who didn't, and just isolated, not the, compared those who don't smoke, were not compared to those who do smoke. Everything was normal, similar, except those who rode to work or walked to work. There was 65% reduction in adult onset diabetes. And there was no exercise component to that because no one was doing exercise. There wasn't a health club. So these people were all compared to people who did no exercise, the people who walked to work and rode a bicycle to work. But it was a unique study because it was done for 35 years. And there was no other exercise being done other than walking or riding a bicycle to work. And this study also includes similar results with the prevention of Alzheimer's and heart disease. And it had 400 medical articles written, published in medical journals around the world while it was being done. It's almost an average of 10 a year. And it still hasn't created the sensationalism it should have created to this day, because there isn't a mechanism where the people who did what was being done in that study do not get sick. You can't buy. It's not for sale. So there's no one who can market it to you. So there's no profit margin to convince us to do this, to do what they were doing. We have to hear about it and start to do it ourselves. And basically what I work with patients to refresh their memory that it's so. Because after a couple of years, I remind patients, like you hear about a new medication coming out to control diabetic adult onset diabetes. And lots of promise, varying results over time. Finally, it's replaced by another one. But none of the medications have ever come close to reducing the risk of amputation of the legs, blindness, and cardiovascular disease that this exercise study demonstrated. Not even close. But they'll still, but they don't get the publicity. So it's up to you. It's up to me. Up to you to learn to do this on your own. And the Lions Club is a perfect vehicle to start to educate people. This is the preventative we've been looking for. There is a program. I mean, there are some things in diet that I haven't firmly, strongly mentioned that. But there are some things that I want to bring up the exercise component because it was so well studied, so well. Now with diet, it's becoming clear that if your diet is going to affect your blood sugar, everyone agrees that by now that what we eat will cause our blood sugar to go up or not. We all know this is true. Now, what's the best way to measure blood sugar? When you go to see the doctor, how does he or she recommend? What test do you do? Yeah, blood test. For what type? A1C. A1C is taking the place, really, of the fasting blood sugar. It's far better. And from now on, when you go to see your doctor, you should ask more for the A1C, because it's much more accurate in predictability of the risk of diabetes and heart disease when you have when your blood sugar is rising than the fasting blood sugar. what lowers the A1C, again you find, exercise, moderate diet, eating a limited, like I tell people to eat fruit, yeah, but eat the size of fruit the size of your fist. You know, eat a clump of grapes this size, or one apple, one pear. And don't eat refined foods. Don't eat refined sugar, refined white rice, white flour. I mean, this is like we say that. Well, look what we did when the Europeans came to America. They gave the native population we gave them our diet, and they all developed diabetes and alcoholism. But that's the diet we've given ourselves. And we've given up, the excessive white reliance on white rice, more and more sweets. So we have an epidemic of alcoholism and diabetes, not just the American Indians. The Eskimos have done the same thing. Every ethnic diet that's been invaded by this particular diet, like I described the group in Israel, the changes are the same with health. The health deteriorates. So it's up, but we will not go back home and hear someone saying this on television, because somebody has to buy the commercial to say this. And the only people who will buy the commercial, people selling a medication that's been approved of, and it's very, very costly. And it has to be costly to have enough of a profit margin to buy a television spot. I'm not saying all medications are bad. I mean, a lot of medications are miraculous. But it's been overdone, and it's been, they're creating almost as much health as pain as they're creating health, the medications, because people are forgetting to rely on the things that actually work. So in adult onset diabetes, what actually works to prevent it and to cure it is a diet of exercise and dietary restraint. It works very well. Beyond that, there are some things that is coming into that help and not hinder, that can help reduce the insulin resistance that I do in my office with people. And there's some very, very promising research, but again, I'm not offering that as the answer. I'm offering the answer that you don't really want to do the diet and exercise part. Why come to see me? You're raising the chances of you improving is strongly reduced. Yeah. So, but I'm offering you also something that works. So, anyone has any questions about it? One thing about the inactivity. The other thing is really read the statistics about the amount of exercise we do in this country is so dramatically reduced over the past 50 years. I think that's one of the reasons the young adults, because of the electronics and the onset of television and electronics, there's less physical movement around the people don't move their bodies enough.
Some schools took out PE completely.
And schools are taking out PE. Yeah, right. Schools are taking out PE. That's the one to speak up for. Yeah. Any other? Yeah.
No, I'm still doing chromium picolinase to balance me out. I find that absolutely marvelous.
Yeah.
I have no idea what part that's actually playing in keeping my sugar down, but it works for me tremendously.
Well, chromium picolinate, magnesium, vitamin C. There's a whole list of supplements that can reduce the insulin resistance, make the insulin, like I said, insulin resistance, your body starts to, you keep asking it to metabolize too many simple carbohydrates, your body gets that it can't recognize, the insulin can't recognize the carbohydrates anymore. The body can't make use of the insulin at the receptor sites. So you have to clean out, you have to find some way to reactivate that. And there's IV vitamin C, there's dietary chromium. Almost every antioxidant helps to some degree. There's some better than others. But chromium is a very good. Yes.
Good question. So just today I was listening about fasting.
Yeah.
And what would be your take on fasting? And how do we know if we want to? Supposedly it helps to reduce Alzheimer's, memory loss, and also weight reduction.
Okay. Now fasting is one way of improving your insulin functionality. If you give your body a fast, don't make a demand of it to process carbohydrates. The insulin becomes more sensitized again to doing its job. Fasting alone, I used to take people on 7-day fast, or 1970s. But fasting itself, unless you're going to do something like 1 day a week, say for 20 years, there's a place. But if you do like 1 week a year, I haven't seen any studies. People feel better. Sometimes doing it if your body's racked by blood pressure, arthritis, blood sugar. There's a place for going to a health spa for 3 weeks and being on a raw foods diet or something similar. The Alzheimer's question comes back to, again, this research article I quoted, the CAPS, British heart study. They end up finding that the very same risk factors related to adult onset diabetes is related to Alzheimer's. So much more so, some researchers in the United States are calling adult onset diabetes, calling Alzheimer's adult onset diabetes 3. Just type that in the internet. You'll be amazed how much this is being discussed. And I haven't heard anything mentioned on the television yet, but it's being discussed a lot. But the same conditions that are causing our diseases with diabetes are also highly like the A1C. That's one of the things that came to be prominently known because it's much more predictive of the risk of Alzheimer's than the fasting blood sugar. So you have to be ready if you really want. And there are programs for Alzheimer's that I'm doing now. I've begun to do, and I'm having good results. And it's based on the program I have for diabetes. So if you have a relative with diabetes with having the risk of Alzheimer's, absolutely have her get interested in everything I'm talking about tonight. I can't on earth. Yeah, including exercise. Yeah.
What do the National Institute for Health have in school districts as far as intervention to reduce the diabetes among our children?
What? For which condition?
If there's already programs that the National Institute for Health have in the school districts as interventions in the reduction of, or at least prevention
for adult onset
interventions that may be
you're saying there is, or you're asking me if there is?
Are there any?
I don't know of any. I don't know of any.
I can answer that.
There must be some. I mean, there's going to be some that's going to be. But again, one of these things, again, it has to do with the preponderance of money being spent is even at the national level, it's still based on. Let me say one thing about this study. I keep quoting. I'll give you an example. This is a British study, and it's CAPS. Okay, it was developed to emulate or to copy a study done in the United States called the Nurses' Health Study. The Nurses' Health Study was to check blood sugar, diabetes, arthritis, and heart disease, but not Alzheimer's. But that test, it did use 100,000 women, all nurses, followed them for 10 years. They stopped because they didn't have enough funding. But why didn't we have enough funding? I mean, that's again why we allocate our money. Whereas this study in England went ahead, and they both groups saw the results. But the people in England said, "We're getting this kind of result. Well, what about Alzheimer's? But they said to do that test, you got to do it for triple the length of time, 30 years instead of 10 years." And it was done, but that's why that study in England is so important. It's related to one that was done here and cut short prematurely because of funding. So,
in the schools, just to answer your question, what's happening in schools just lately is Each of the school districts now have a health and wellness coordinator. And that coordinator does what we do is under the Global Initiative for Health and Wellness here in Lyons, which Liz is on our board. What we do is we make sure that we get this information in action and helping them do their exercise and awareness by sending them home with information for children and for adults and telling them if they need further instruction, they can call us. So yes, we are beginning that. We're now in 6 different, well, we're probably in 8 different schools. Is that right, Bill? Nina? Something like that. And not only that, but sometimes we have 600 to 800 children per day that we work with. So it's not small. Right?
That's great.
Right. And, Dr. Lynn is a member of our club.
Yeah,
I have
that's
to
right.
tell
And I've given lectures to Lions clubs in Hong Kong and Manila. And my dad was a member of the Lions Club in a little town in Louisiana.
I have a question about beta blockers.
The beta blockers, okay? Yeah.
And diabetes.
Okay. The question is, do beta blockers, that's a good question, do beta blockers contribute to diabetes? They do. The beta blockers, the statins in women, is a major risk of developing adult onset diabetes. All, the statins, the things that lower the cholesterol. But beta blockers also, because beta blockers make the increase in the insulin resistance. So there's quite a few medications, and those are the 2 main ones. The beta blockers for heart disease and the statins that will increase your risk of adult onset diabetes. And that's a statistically proven fact. But again, those things have been proven. But again, the information about it are not on your doctor's desk up front. What's on his desk or her desk is what's been offered as a new medication for blood pressure, or for blood. So, I know I sound like a broken record, but that's the reality. That's the reality I know. Yeah. Yes.
I think, we should take an accountability on taking care of the issue of diabetes.
Yeah.
Fundraising like this gives us an awareness.
Yeah.
We cannot expect the government or agencies to take care of the problem.
Yeah.
It starts from us. So as long as we bring out there the awareness about diabetes and taking action on it, starting from our family, I think that's the only way that we can really resolve this. Because the bottom line is that it's what you eat, your daily living, your lifestyle, what you do, what you feed your family. That's the most important thing. And I think we're already starting to have that awareness, even with the hospitals. Like I belong to Kaiser, and they teach that.
Yeah.
But we need to reach out and use it.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
It is.
There's so many resources out there, and if we focus ourselves on what is the cure and where do we get the insulin and the testing, it's not going to work out. What we need to put in our mindset is how to change our lifestyle on a daily basis.
Yeah, and this is what we have control over, and we have responsibility to do. We have a body. I mean, it's God-given. It's a mystery why we have this body. And there's clearly some things about this body that is better for it than others. So, and somebody tries to sell you a program that doesn't make sense. Just ask them. I always ask patients that if you've been told to do that, ask them for the research. Ask them for the research that was done by somebody who's not trying to sell you the product. And most of the things are being most of the research is being done by companies who are trying to sell you a product. And you can listen with a grain of salt. I mean, just like a Ford Motor Company came up with the idea, they had the best cars, and that research was done by Ford. You would question it, but it was a company that's providing a woman with a medication for high blood pressure. For high blood cholesterol, and it's a statin. Ask them about the risk of adult onset diabetes in those women, and ask them for the article how what study was done that's not sponsored by that company, that improve women's health, and you won't find them. No, unless you find it, give it to me. I haven't never been able to find it. Okay.
Is there any direct correlation between cardio exercise and diabetes? Like, let's say if you do more cardio.
What now?
So,
The correlation?
I was just wondering, is there any correlation, direct correlation between cardio exercises and diabetes?
Yeah.
Right? Let's say someone who's diabetic and does lots of cardio, will it have? Is there any direct correlation?
Direct correlation.
Yeah.
Direct correlation.
Yeah.
And again, that same study I quoted, they had 60% reduction in cardiovascular disease, 60% reduction in diabetic, and 65% reduction in Alzheimer's. And there's a reason why we know these are correlated. If you do exercise, if you have heart disease, you probably have the type of cholesterol that makes your body rust. It's particles. I mean, it can be measured now. It's not a guess. And you just have to figure out, okay, how am I going to make those particles go down? Well, you make them go down by exercise. The same way you make insulin resistance go down by exercise. So by doing the exercise as a cardiovascular patient, you in fact are doing a treatment for adult onset diabetes. Yeah. Yes.
Dr. Lynn, as a diabetic who's controlled her diabetes with exercise and diet for the last 5 years, I like to have one justification how I may hit the chocolate plate that's coming up next.
No, ang gamot ng diabetes, sabihin mo sa kanila, uminom sila ng patis.
Patis.
Rupina.
Patis.
That's a good question. I have an answer. The chocolate cakes that's coming up has stevia in it. Stevia doesn't cause your blood sugar to rise like sucrose does. Fructose, sucrose, I mean, there's a whole different subject, but there's a world of difference. When we say sugar, 95% of the time we're talking about sucrose. There's a natural plant sugar called maltose that doesn't cause your blood sugar to rise. It doesn't taste as sweet. It won't sell as well. But stevia is another one that's plant-based, but so is sugar plant-based. But stevia won't raise your blood sugar.
Is there a downside to stevia? Is there anything bad about it?
Not really, compared to, maybe it's a side effect of the medication. I haven't heard of it.
Stevia is a nutrient, so it has to...
Well, yeah, it's a nutrient. It's not like sugar is a refined food, where, like if people don't get addicted to sugarcane juice, they get addicted to sugar. Big. I grew up on a sugarcane farm. First hand account.
Very good, very good.